Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
I am proud to call you honorable already. As you bid to represent the older persons.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Simon. If you can look for a few voters for me from the district, from Jinja up to Kaveramaida, I would be very grateful.
You feel the heat?
Yes. In the alternative, you can give me some blood transfusion.
That's very interesting. On my extreme is Major General retired Gregory Mugisha Muntu, one of the founders and former coordinator of the Alliance for National Transformation. Glad to have you with us, and a very good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, dear viewers.
Charles Romushana, a political analyst, joins us tonight. What a pleasure to have you. Good evening.
The Almighty God of all creation is great and exceedingly merciful.
Wonderful. And the lady, former legislator, former chairperson, former chairman, Kamuli District, and one of the founding members of the PFF, Honorable Salaamu Musumba. Glad to have you, and a very good evening.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening out there.
You're looking very elegant.
Yes, I feel good, thank you. I always found things, good things.
And you abandoned them?
No, I don't.
Well, good to have you. I'll begin with General Muntu. There were mixed reactions that greeted the coalition. Was it a coalition?
It's a cooperation.
Cooperation between ANT and PFF. What is in it for the country?
We've always all focused, one as individuals, but also within the organizations in which we've operated from, focusing on how we can have a better country. A country where you find justice, where you find equality before the law, where you find people accessing equal opportunities, where you have stability, and a country that develops where governments use taxpayers' money in a transparent way, and they're also held accountable in the event that they don't utilize the resources of the country as would be desired by the people. That has always been our focus. Different phases that we've gone through, different efforts applied, and it's a continuous struggle. That's what we're involved in. That's the basis of us wanting to cooperate between us and Alliance for National Transformation and PFF. One, to give hope, but also to influence the thinking in our population. Unfortunately, where the narrative has almost been shaped by those who have done so consciously, but in a deceptive way, as if when you have political disagreements, that necessarily must have hostilities. So when we relate, and I believe when we do so successfully, it starts creating a different picture, and therefore influencing the political culture in the country. That you can have political disagreements, but you don't have to be hostile to each other.
What explains the irony that you were back with the people who looked at you as a mole and who caused all the discomfort that led you to depart from the FDC?
Our disagreements mostly was over strategy. But in the process of communications, you're always going to have people who say all nature of things. Because again, that's the character of our politics. And my hope is that we'll have parties which, when they take power, can change that culture again. Because in politics, it's like almost anything goes. You can, use words to, provoke, or use words to undermine, or use words whatever. Even at times when people don't mean it, but they are focused on how to move to wherever they want to go. Those are peripheral issues. When you
I thought it's significant because trust is very key.
Absolutely. But you see, you need to understand that the country is larger than us as individuals. It's larger than even the parties we're operating, we're trying to build. There are 45 million people out there, most of whom are so frustrated. The population is growing so fast. In a very short period of time, 2 decades, we are going to hit 100 million people. So how on earth can you entertain sentiment or emotions or whatever happened in the past without focusing on what could happen in future if we don't have people who are like-minded, the thinking is the same, but at times can disagree over strategy or can, disagree over different issues. So we keep looking forward. Why? Because we are driven by that understanding that unless you have got sane people running government in this country, we are going to have a larger crisis than what we see now. Picture 100 million people, 100 million mouths to feed, 100 million people to transportation systems, what educational systems, health systems, delivery of services, 100 million people, jobs for the young people. Then, right now, we have got 45 million people, and the young people who come out of universities are jobless. So imagine when we're 100 million people. So if by that time we would not have had a class of leaders who are going to transform the culture. Imagine when you have 100 million people who are frustrated. You don't want to look at countries where that scenario prevails now. I don't want to mention names, but there are some countries which are almost like hell on earth. We are driven by the desire to prevent that.
General Muntu, there have been quite a number of cooperations, alliances, and coalitions.
Yes.
Here is another one. Aren't you reinventing the wheel?
No. Actually, something new that is happening, particularly in this cooperation, and even the efforts we apply in trying to reach out to other colleagues. The approach is different, but most times some of these details escape people. I've been involved in these efforts in the past, and unfortunately, for some strange reason, the majority of people who would be acting in those other efforts always wanted to have 100% agreement. My view has been consistent even in the past. My view has always been, and the advice I've always given, is that you don't have to agree 100%. You just look for common ground. Where you don't agree, you can keep discussing until whatever point you agree. But you can shelve that and work on where you agree. I've always found myself in the minority. Then in the past. Now, this cooperation is built on the understanding that you don't have to agree 100%, but that you can look for common ground. And this has succeeded because we have now common ground between Alliance for National Transformation and PFF. And we believe, even with some other actors, I won't go into details, we believe we'll find common ground where we can cooperate. It doesn't have to be 100%.
I'll come to you on this. General Muntu says this is a completely different arrangement. You've observed the formations like coalitions and alliances. How much would you look at this?
Well, I hope we can take General Muntu's words to the bank and we cash it. Unfortunately, recent historical events and facts don't bear testimony to what he's talking about. It was Frank Delano Roosevelt who coined the phrase rendezvous with destiny. I think General Muntu and the Alliance for National Transformation, having moved out of FDC in that spectacular, dramatic fallout, public, where there were barbs, insults, sometimes coined to annoy particularly him. I remember the exchanges between Honorable Salaamu Musumba and Ali Salaso. We can Google and find those.
Please do so.
That disagreement, that sharp disagreement, I think General Muntu and Alliance for National Transformation, having failed to gain political traction, particularly electability in a significant way in the country, with the presidential, parliamentary, local government, and even failed to gain traction by media coverage, have come to a rendezvous with destiny that probably if they want to remain relevant, they need to join forces. Unfortunately,
sorry, you want to look at this as a relevance-seeking initiative?
Yes. I think, unfortunately, he's coming into that cooperation, as we say in the politics, with the devil, quote and unquote. You are the one who reminded the viewers that these are the same people who hounded him out of FDC in 2017-2018. And he reached that difficult decision. I think it was a difficult decision. You remember that General Muntu did not walk out of the FDC and immediately founded ANT. He took a whole year going around the country asking his supporters, what should we do? And eventually they advised him to find another vehicle, and therefore they founded ANT. I don't know if in this process of coming into the cooperation with the same group, though not FDC, but same people, he has also gone around the country asking ANT membership if they should come back to have a cooperation with the same people who hounded them from where I stand.
I would imagine before the unveiling there must have been consensus.
I'm saying I hope that he again went round the structures of ANT around the country, and they said, they gave him a green light, cooperate with the same people who hounded us out of FDC. I hope that was done. But be that as it may, he says they fell out on account of divergence on strategy.
Yeah.
And you remember that time for him, he said, I want to build structures. And the other people were saying, we want civil disobedience. I don't know if in this cooperation, because I've been in other things, I have not followed closely. If they have now harmonized that now the cooperation will focus more on building structures and engage with the membership of both groups, but seeing as it is coming on the heels of election, you know, political groups are now sizing up to nominate candidates in the next 2 months to the Electoral Commission. Internally, they are also selecting candidates to hold their flags, so to speak. My suspicion is that they are doing it for election convenience. Why? Because they have seen that the group that upstaged them in the election, in the structures of the politics in the country, and in the media, they don't seem, the group that upstaged them, NOP in particular, seem not to have found its way and getting stuck. It is, I think they have read that NOP is unlikely to expand its presence in parliament numbers significantly if they ever increase the numbers at all. NOP, I think they have read that NOP is unlikely to expand in the country to get more representation in other districts. I think they are saying that NOP, even in here where NOP currently has representation, is likely probably to go down a little, and therefore, and with what has happened to FDC, my suspicion is that they are reading that they can occupy, fill the void. And that being the case, that they are doing it on the eve of election, and for purposes of election, I think it is a marriage of convenience. And if they don't agree, they don't share the slots for filling in candidates, my prediction is that this cooperation may not live to see the light of day.
Thank you. Honorable Salaamu, I just want you to respond to the misgivings of OO. he seems to pour scorn on literally everything, even the premise on which you're standing.
There's good news to write home about. There's very good news to write home about. The two adults that had issues have chosen to work together again.
Genuinely or flattered?
Of course. Of course. We are not clowns. We are heavy-duty politicians. We are resilient politicians. And we are bankable. Any day, anytime. And therefore, joy to the country, joy to the world, that yes, something new has happened. Usually what you write home about is conflict. Today, I know you're lost for words because this is not your usual cup of tea. And so I don't blame you. I don't at all. And so it's good news to our people, good news to the people of Uganda that yes, there's a team that is able to go to the confession box. I know he's a Catholic. I know you are. Mea culpa, mea culpa. There's a country to save. Isn't that good? If you find issue with it, die with it.
What really binds you with NT?
It's the mission.
Whose ideology is to do more with building.
Okay, let them be problems.
While you're looking at defiance, you see that there seems not to be
you say
a
you're
point
stuck,
of convergence.
listen to me, you're stuck in the past. And your narrative just doesn't cut it for me in the present times. We have a country that is sinking. A country with a deficit of leadership. Just crowds. Mere crowds chanting. And so the leadership crisis that we are responding to, as Honorable Muntu has said, is bigger than us. You can sit here and be armchair commentators. You can. But if we see what we see, we are glad that we are working with a team that we are familiar with, we are comfortable with, and that we have worked and resolved many things.
Okay, what are the key things to accomplish?
Cooperation first. By
On
the way,
what? Cooperating on what?
of course we are political, not beans, not bananas. On politics, on the governance of this country. To be able to handle the threats that face us squarely. We are political entities.
Yeah, but there have been quite a number of cooperations where yourself have been involved.
In the past.
What would make this one successful and more unique?
Why are you in a hurry? We have just told you that we as adults of majority age have made a choice. In ordinary terms, you would be saying, congratulations. I've never seen a good thing that they are haranguing us over a good thing.
Yeah, but
shame on you.
Yes, but the skepticism alone.
You can go to hell. You can go to hell with your skepticism. Go work out something for yourself. We, People's Front for Freedom, we, Alliance for National Transformation, have agreed to work together. Can you go home and sleep as you dream about a better Uganda with us?
Charles, you've had the enthusiasm and the hope from both Honorable Salaamu Musumba and General Muntu. Do you look at this cooperation as something that will stand the test of time?
I thought the original question was what is in the cooperation. And they've told you they are looking at politics. Right? So the question is to achieve what? What is the end state? What is the operating?
Better governance, like they say.
No. Because they are part of the mess. Mainly Muntu is the foundation of the National Resistance Army. Yes.
I didn't get drunk.
Is the foundation of the National Resistance Army. Actually, the most critical.
I acknowledge that.
That what?
That I didn't get drunk. If you think I'm drunk, that's okay. Then you can say I'm part of the problem. If I'm not drunk,
Drunk in terms of what? Of
am I in the crowd that loots?
roots?
Loots.
Remember, I'm looking at the foundation of the instrument, the National Resistance Army, that usurped Uganda's sovereignty, up to the process of the failed experiment of the transition of 1995 in the CA. He represented the army, I represented a constituency. We were there in that conversation, and he continued as the army commander.
And we put that
And the elections of 1995, 96, Usomogere were rigged when he was there.
He was the commissioner, the electoral commission.
He was the army commander.
Yes.
Was the army running the?
Yes, it has been the army that has been doing that. But if you haven't understood that really, then you haven't been around. Can I be protected?
Yeah, but you seem to be stuck in the past.
Yes.
No. You see, you have to have a foundation.
You see, it's just a distortion.
Please, you have to have. He has told you he is a politician. He's an adult politician. He was not talking in terms of age, of having going to be on 50 years. No, he's talking about the experience. So you can't discuss their experience without discussing history.
Yeah, they've learned from the past and now they're moving on.
Yes, so that's what I was saying. What is the operating situation? You cooperate to do what? You cooperate to contest state power, which is fused in Mr. Museveni. And what tools has he put in place? One is the court martial. He's put the court martial. The court martial to handle political dissent. So your cooperation, because this is the audit we ought to be doing. My issue is not about them cooperating. My issue is not about them having a cup of tea or meeting. They've met before. But you are cooperating to face what challenges? One of the challenges is an armed politician. Mr. Museveni is an armed politician, apparently fused with the state, and is not shy about it. So, if we are auditing your cooperation, because you've not read the document, Mr. Muntu has only told you that they are agreeing on the most minimum, right? We've not been given the most minimum. So if you choose to discuss the cooperation, then you should be having the most minimum that they are agreeing on. Now that you have not given me the most minimum, then I give you the challenges that we face as a country, which he has alluded to, that there is a leadership deficit. The country is seeking, I agree, that's the operating situation. So the most minimum where I'm going to cooperate on is what? And then we now analyze your capability in relation to history and in relation to your capabilities you've built as of now. So I would love to look at Mr. Museveni. Very allergic to competition, political competition. Extremely allergic. That's why he picked forms and there was only one form. When another party came, he said, no, we don't have forms. You wait when we get forms. In other words, there was only one form.
I thought we were discussing the cooperation of ANC.
To do what?
Yeah, he's putting context.
Yes,
he's putting context
because you see, the question is what is in the cooperation. The cooperation to do it's not a circle to benefit from PDM. It is
a political
cooperation to face these challenges.
Yes.
And therefore you must analyze the character that they are going to
you want some
confront.
interjection
Yes,
from
yes, Simon, I thought you have been extremely unfair or actually incompetent in interrogating this matter. I thought we should have asked the two people who are cooperating what are the issues they are cooperating on, so that the viewers, the Ugandans, know.
I'll get there.
Are they taking us for a ride or what? What are they? What Rumshana was referring to as the bare minimum? What are those?
Okay, fine. I'll get to.
So that's what I'm saying. Because we know the challenges we've been facing. The challenges we face is the militarization of Uganda's politics. That's a challenge. So you are cooperating. What does that cooperation, how does it address this? So if you have Mr. Museveni, who owns the state, has handed over the army to his own son, Mr. Mozekeni Rugaba, it's a challenge. I would love to hear, at least my sister, Salaamu, I won't talk about Belgium. So when Mr. Muntu was the army commander in 1996, could he have handed over power to Somogerere if he had won? Even if the elections were free and fair? Could he have? Would the National Resistance Army...
Muntu has gone to every mile to explain to you that the country is sinking and it's now time for people to come together.
So what I'm even saying that even if you overwhelmed Mr. Museveni at the polling station, and for some reason Byabakama declares you as president, you can't swear in. So I would love to see a cooperation from very serious people. I have no doubt about them, very serious. But so I would love to see a cooperation that addresses the challenges, not areas where they disagree. The minimum is how is it going to liberate message from
Charles, I'll interrupt you on that very note, because everyone is curious about the bare minimums. What are the bare minimums? I'll interrupt you. It's okay, I'll get back to you.
You know, we are operating a very, very complex situation. And we also need to look at the context of how we've gotten here. One, the systematic scheme of deception, the systematic scheme of breaking down people and creating a state of hopelessness, to a point where people reach a conclusion that there's nothing we can do other than going on the gravy train. It's done in a skillful way, that I must admit. And in the process of creating that, you bump into many people going through using different channels, using different tools, whose purpose, one, is to be critical of everything that will be designed to counter the threat, to cause a situation where you are critical of every effort, but you don't offer any solution, so that you keep on pressing in that deliberate, conscious attempt to cause a state of hopelessness in the country, in the people. It is sad to see that some people have fallen for that. That's why I even find leaders who, if they had been groomed and reinforced, would have been very good leaders. But who, if anything, are breaking down because they cannot sustain effort out there in fighting against the regime. Yeah, that's why you find many of them collapsing and crossing over.
Can we look at the bare minimums?
So what we are doing, one of the things that we are doing, is to ensure that that narrative is closed by building a counter narrative to say that you must, if you are to die, die standing, fighting for what is right. Two, engage in a process of shifting the beliefs of people and perceptions that however dark a situation may seem, when you are under threat as a people, as a nation, that becomes the focal point around which you rally. Anything else that has caused you maybe to disagree, if it is not fundamental, you forget about that. And you engage in a process on how you can overwhelm a group like this that is in power, that is literally driving this country down.
Yeah, but this is a cooperation hinged on an election.
Yes, on an election. Yes, part of the process, because capturing power through a process of elections is worth all the effort that you put in there. I know there are many people who don't agree that you can take power through elections. I disagree to a certain extent. I am not someone who is naive, that I don't see what is happening. I know what is happening, but at the same time, I know a saying which goes like, success comes when opportunity meets with preparation. Nobody knows what's going to happen down the road. None of us knows. Genome 7 doesn't know. I don't know. I don't think anybody else knows. But those of us who have been building effort to take power, you must keep focused on the understanding that actually you can overwhelm that regime, regardless of what you may see happening around. I'll give you examples.
Also, is this the realization
just
that...
a second.
Yes.
Just a second. Let me first exhaust this point of view, and I'll give examples. Regimes like we have now, always, wherever there have been such regimes, by the time of collapse, most of them think that nothing can happen. I want to draw you to the example of Egypt. Not that that's what I expect to happen here. Conditions are different. But to build the point that preparation is a critical factor. When opportunity appears, that you link the two, and then you can succeed. Why do I say so? First, in Egypt, that uprising was never sparked by within Egypt itself. It started in Tunisia. A guy called Bouazizi burnt himself because of the frustrations he was in, and the policewoman took his fruits. He burnt himself, and it spread from Tunisia. It went into Egypt. There was a spark in Egypt, and the streets took over. The army stepped in. They called for elections in 6 months. They engaged in that election. Who won? Not the people who were on the streets. The Islamic Brotherhood, which had been suppressed for more than 50 years. It was a free and fair election. The Islamic Brotherhood won that election. Only that it caused panic because of the ideological implications of Islamic Brotherhood running a country like Egypt. What happened after that, we all know. I won't go into that. The issue is constant, continuous preparation is a key factor.
Okay, granted.
That's what we're engaged in.
Why with PFF?
Around
why not with others?
Yes, it's the one which matured fast. We indicated that as a first step. We are continuing. For example, we've been separately in touch with NUP. PFF has been in touch with NUP. NT has been in touch with NUP. We've been in touch with each other as NT and PFF. This has matured fast. While we've been in touch with NUP separately, now we will be in touch with it jointly.
Thank you.
And then the new thing which I indicated to you, some people may dismiss it, but it's a critical factor. All other coalitions or attempts at coalitions or other areas of cooperation failed. Why? Because literally all of them were focusing on achieving 100% agreement on all objectives. This is different. But it's also a test for us. We are not naive. We understand the dynamics.
Finally,
we understand the dynamics.
Muntu.
We understand the dynamics of this situation.
Do you have...
We have gone in there full-hearted. It's also part of the test that who we are at the end of the day. If it succeeds and becomes self-evident, my hope is that those who are skeptical now will be honest enough.
Are you persuaded to believe that this is more of a gamble?
It's not a gamble. We are not gamblers, my friend. We
No,
are
we
not
look
gamblers.
like
we are systematic in the things we do.
Okay. Charles, I'll give you just
Let me
2
also
minutes,
give you
then I
information maybe that can help in the discussions, because I saw O and Honorable Romshana talk about, I think not Honorable Romshana, I think O is the one who was talking about being hounded out of FDC. We were not hounded out of FDC. We separated. And the main factor was, but factors at times get lost in the noise. In the campaign that we had between myself, I was standing on a particular strategy, and Patrick Oboy was standing on a particular strategy. And in his campaign because of the conditions in which we had been operating, there had been a lot of contradictions which were not resolved in that time, and it had caused paralysis. So basically what we knew is that we had failed to manage those two strategies moving simultaneously. I believed we could if we kept on attempting. But Honorable Oboy campaigned on the platform that whichever strategy wins must be the only strategy in the party. Basically, which meant, had we won, the party would have basically said, you cannot do activities around defiance. Defiance won. We accepted. We recognized the fact that we had several options.
And it was a bitter departure.
No, it was smooth. Because we went around the country, we got a report, I rang Honorable Oboy, we met four, from each side. We presented a report. The only issue was the handling thereafter, which we had anticipated. We had proposed that we have a 2-2 team from both sides to manage post-conflict separation, which was never adhered to. So it was incumbent upon us to manage that.
That's why, just 2 minutes, and then we take a break
that's why,
before I return to
That's why no war erupted, because you can never have a one-sided war. So people who may have felt aggrieved or misunderstood the situation may have made statements, possibly which, if we had been provoked to respond to, we would have had a war. We didn't have a war. And that's why the situation settled. And that's why, after that, ANT was never in conflict with FDC. Even after separation of the two groups that were in FDC, there was no conflict between us, for example, with the colleagues in Katonga. That's why you find it easy for us to reconnect, to re-engage, and focus on the main objectives, which is the country.
Charles, does that rest your misgivings?
Please.
What has happened, Charles?
You noticed how the ideas were flowing. Yours are not interrupted.
No, we are waiting.
So I asked about the cooperation, the most minimum. It can't come out.
It hasn't come out.
It can't.
Let me
Please, you won't. It's either we give you a whole century.
Read the MOU.
That's what I'm saying. You see, if there is an MOU,
It is.
if there is an agreement, it must have elements, and they are easy to highlight.
We'll send it
But
you read it.
then why have a conversation in the dark? So that's why I
Then
imagine.
opt out.
Come again?
Opt out.
Opt out of what?
Out of the discussion.
I didn't invite myself. That's why I'm saying, give me the opportunity to imagine.
Can I
now
give you 2 minutes, because we want to take a break?
Yes, to now imagine, given the situation, what they ought to have cooperated on. The most minimum. Because the other larger issues, I know them. I have seen them fight. Now that another number 5 is not there, Amuriat is not there, Jack Savit is not there, we can talk. If you now want raw material. But now if you have to look at contesting Mr. Museveni, FDC is the only organization where they were, with his leadership, that were able to get 52% of the polling agents. They were able to do that. They never went beyond that. Now they don't even have capacity to do 30% of the polling agents of Uganda. Even when the situation was very favorable
Why are you quick to dismiss them?
But you are here. You are here. Ask Mugisha Muntu and his auntie the percentage of the country he covered in terms of polling agents. The percentage of candidates he covered for parliamentary, even parliamentary only.
170.
Parliamentary, 170. So that even if all of them had won, you couldn't get the speaker and the deputy speaker. So what are these ones going to add? Because you see, the PF is merely Katonga. It's the whole FDC minus the Amriat. So if you're talking about cooperation and you're talking about using the route of elections, the most bare minimum is that, because you should have 2/3 of parliament if you have to do some bit of change. If you have to change, you know how they amend the constitution. So you see, the option of BSG, which was a correct option, is that if you won't allow us to eat with you and share the food, the buffet, then we pour in soil. We raise dust, and all of us agree on how to. That is having some bit of problems. You see, Mugisha Muntu knows, if you're talking about power, he knows if he was the CDF, how you would fail to get it from him. He knows. And he knows how to capture power. He is a success story. He knows the route of how you grab power from an armed politician is through a gun. You're not going to, this most thing is telling me about most died in prison. And that